All right. Welcome to our second live group coaching call. It's a very important conversation we're going to have today. We're here to talk about the root behind every other problem in our experience: identity. Not knowing who you are is costing you. Not knowing who you are has you people pleasing. Not knowing who you are has you doing things that are completely misaligned to who you really are. See, the issue with identity is we don't get a chance while we're growing up to really discover who we are because from the very beginning, we're being told who we are. So when we're being told who we are, you then begin to internalize, accept, and subscribe into whatever has been planted into the soil of your mind. The reality is, we don't often see the effects of these seeds that started off as small criticisms, rejections, betrayals, disappointments, things that we wanted taken away from us. And as all of this begins to happen, it wears on us. We begin to create a deeper and deeper narrative about who we are in life, and it's fed back to us mostly through our family dynamic, and then school, and then the friends and collectives that you're encountering. But you never had a chance to show up as you actually authentically wanted. No, you were showing up how you were trained to show up based on what your early upbringings were like. Many of us know about the four major trauma responses: fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And in a different conversation, we'll go over these in depth. But today, what I want to draw your attention to is children feel stress. Our nervous systems are primal, they get activated faster than our brain. And when that nervous system is activated with the felt sense of threat because safety is being threatened, all of a sudden stress spikes and the body responds. And when the body responds, it goes into an automatic mode. This is part of the struggle so many people have. They haven't had a chance to understand their bodies, and their bodies are already in reaction. And when your body's already in reaction, and depending on your upbringing, if volatility, dysfunction, and chaos were a common theme, you may not have had time to recover. Depending on if what your parents were like in their emotional intelligence, most parents, they don't know what they don't know. Most of them have traumas passed down to them, which they're simply unaware of. And they're also being hit by life, trying to move forward as best they can. Most of us listening to do this work, dealing and stepping into the stuff that we encountered, is really the stuff that is breaking generations of trauma and patterning. So it's difficult because at this stage of the game, you're probably very clear and acutely aware of where a lot of your identity has come from. A lot of it has come from the wounds that we've encountered from our mother and our father. Doesn't stop us loving them. Has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that when we started in this journey, we started unconditionally loving them. And in that unconditional love, your biology is literally working with you towards simply adapting to the one you completely trust. And then when we encounter hurt, harm, or betrayal in a family unit, all of a sudden safety is thwarted and your body begins to respond faster than your mind can. And in that, you have one of these trauma responses. And the thing is when we do not understand the core behind these trauma responses, we don't understand the remedy. We don't know how to actually calm our nervous system down because we're still running through the reaction. I'm going to break this part down and just keep it as simple as I possibly can. When it comes to the fight response, the underlying need that is required, that is not being met, is one of not being heard. This is important because when we think about a person who is angry or in a fight response, we think of them escalating, getting their voice louder and louder and louder. Why is that the case when the need is to be heard? because that is how we respond when we do not feel like we're being heard. When it comes to the second response, we have the flight response. Now, when the flight response is activated, there is a core need behind the flight response that the person requires in order to feel safe again, in order to stop trying to run and escape. And it is the core need to be seen. To be seen without prejudice, pressure, or judgment. Only then will the nervous system of somebody who's running a flight response begin to calm down and begin to return to a place of safety. Next, we have the freeze response. The freeze response is a very interesting one because, as the word implies, your nervous system literally has you frozen. The stimulations are too much, and you do not have access to your voice because you're frozen. And when that's the case, all that occurs most of the time is a retreat, because what is required for a person in a freeze response is the underlying need to be acknowledged. Without being acknowledged, that person will not feel safe enough to begin to thaw and process what they've gone through. This is very important. And as we move into the fourth response, the fawning response, also known as people pleasing. This comes as a result of feeling unsafe and needing to garner that safety. The person does acts of safety. Sorry, they do acts of service in order to garner safety. And when that is the case, the practice of repressing their own voice, suppressing their own needs, their own wants, is the habit chronically. Self suppression in order to pander and please the person they don't feel safe with. This is very important because persons who are struggling with a fawn response struggle at the core of themselves to know what they want, to be able to say what they want, and to be able to feel safe enough to actually take up space. Because they had to shapeshift, they had to chameleon, mask, hide, pretend. They build a lifelong practice of self abandoning their authentic voice. Even their voice will change. And the need to bring somebody's nervous system out of a fawn response is to be seen. This is the root need. Without feeling seen, the person will keep performing. These are so important to understand because a personality that is in a dysfunctional or a traumatic or a chaotic upbringing, the person isn't actually developing their authentic self expression. Their personality is a mix between them reacting and noticing what is gaining approval from outside feedback. And be it a fight response and you're labeled a hothead, be it a people pleaser response and you're labeled indecisive, doesn't matter what this frame is. These are judgments that get internalized by the person who's reacting or responding from one of these nervous system survival mechanisms. But the seed in the mind is being planted that this is who you are. And when that seed gets planted, it's very difficult for the consciousness to unentangle between who the person is being mirrored back as and the authentic experience that's happening in their body. And they're in the gap where they don't know how to put language or their authentic voice forward to bridge that gap, which is why when it comes to healing, it requires a safe space to begin the practice of expression. Expressing ourselves is the way that we as humans organize our thinking. And we can only organize our thinking when we feel safe enough to speak. They've done studies that if a person was to spend 30 minutes a day speaking in front of a light post outside, think of that. The significance of just being able to spend time consistently speaking through their own inner monologue and their own thoughts radically improved their mental wellness. This is important because how much more support can an expert provide, be it a coach, therapist, counselor? But in and as much as those are offered, even a confidant, a friend, somebody who is genuinely holding a safe space for you. Perhaps it's a man or a woman's circle or group where there's group therapy space being created in the safety that your honest emotions are allowed to be seen and held. These are all important ways to start the process of expressing. The other less sometimes intimidating, but often can be very intimidating way to begin process of expressing yourself is journaling. There's different version of journaling. We're so used to using our phones, but there's a deep process that takes place when you pick up pen and go to paper. It's like your soul gets to penetrate between the mind and the identity you've been trained into, your emotions that have been suppressed in your body, and then the pen touching the paper and the soul within you, the spirit within you, the part of you that is animate and aware, conscious to everything you're experiencing, it begins to write what it's feeling inside. And for many of us, it's very difficult. It was difficult for me. I avoided it, judged it because I was like, no, I have to do it perfectly on paper because that's how my mind had been trained. Behave. So self expression isn't about behaving. It's about learning that you're allowed to be safe enough to organize your thinking by speaking, either verbally or written. And this is the importance of the beginning stages of healing. Because if you do not get a chance to open your mouth, the mind takes what was something small and spirals because you have nothing but the echo chamber of your mind, which only has access to the past inputs. And so you need space to literally speak out your thinking with no judgment. So all your thoughts and emotions can come out and you'll literally find your through line. You'll get clarity on yourself and what things mean for you, what that argument meant for you, what that encounter with that person meant for you, whether it's positive or negative. You can be doing this even for the form of celebration, but for many of us in healing, we're in a process of trying to recover the sense of self that can even honor something to celebrate about yourself. Because for many of us, you've had an experience of not being seen for your lifetime. And this is the beginning stages of you really stepping into beginning to acknowledge the authentic experience you've had in your lived body. Because remember, nobody has lived a day in your experience, not a millisecond. In reality, we never escape our own body. And this is the most difficult truth to sit with. Nobody has understood you. And even you haven't spent time understanding you, which is why the work is radically committed towards you being real and honest with yourself. You're at a place in your life now where you're being given space to start this work, to do it. And if you've been doing it, I'm acknowledging you because the work continues. Because beyond self expression, beyond untangling yourself from the stories of who people have sold to you that you are and that your mind spun and you created an identity around and you absorbed as a belief that this is who I am, this is my habitual way of being, so this is must be me. There is a freedom. There is a place beyond it where you, after working through, being and sitting through everything that was essentially clogging your pipes from the past, all of a sudden now there's a real natural flow of the voice within, the wisdom within that was always there like a fountain. It just got shut down and shut up and muzzled. But now you're working to reclaim your voice through your integrity work and starting to become honest and real with yourself in word, thought, and deed. And that actually is how you rewire your nervous system and is how you begin to walk in a state of authentic creation of who you choose to be. And in that choosing, you get access to your real wants, desires. So I want to highlight the reality of identity is so important because for most of us, we're living a life presuming we know who we are, but really we just know the habit of who we've become that has survived under the situations that we've had to encounter that no one gave us a manual for. And the reason it was so important to understand those four trauma responses is because those get activated by stress in your nervous system in childhood. And when those get activated and your identity is still forming, you don't get an opportunity to create a conscious or a strong sense of self, depending on how intense your upbringing was. And with that being said, there are these most important core human needs: to be seen, heard, and acknowledged is the equivalent of feeling whole and worthy. And for us, we literally start in a womb. So we're literally held. But then as the birthing process carries us forth, we go on this journey of constantly feeling like our self is outside of us. Who you really are could never be outside of you. It's impossible. And so when it comes to this work of reclaiming your true self, it's really a removal of all the masks and the burdens and the lies that you had to adopt and absorb in the fertile soil of your innocent mind. And although there's rage, resentment, and hate towards all those people who added that into the soil of your mind, your pain is actually the gift to which you are going to access your purpose. Because what we suffer through, the pains and trials we encounter in this life, are how our soul etches its unique voice throughout. And then the wisdom garnered of persevering through that pain becomes your authority in your lived experience in the world and however it shows up. And you have authority to speak on that pain because you worked through it. And it's hard earned wisdom that no one can take from you. And this is the power of committing to yourself in this work. Nothing is wasted in the walk of life. Nothing is wasted in the transformation process. But everything requires radical realness and honesty to awaken from the lies and the hypnosis of who you've been thinking you are. And it starts by recognizing who you've been thinking you are is just that: a lot of practiced thoughts, which then get entrained as beliefs, which then get wired into feelings in your body, which then literally begin the process of straitjacketing you. And the way forward, the way to unshackle, is radical honesty. And as we go through this process together in the coming timelines, you're going to begin to feel safer, more acknowledged within yourself. And in this community, you're going to continue to feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. And in that, it's going to be a birthing space for your inner heart's worthiness wounds to begin to really heal from the inside out. And as you continue this work on your own, life will begin to mirror to you the power of the work you've started within yourself. We're going to pause here today. I wish you all the best where you are, and I look forward to seeing you on our next conversation. God bless you.